Welcome, everybody, to a very special edition of the True Believers podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We've got a great show for you tonight, but we have a little disturbance in the True Believers mix because, guys, we're talking about Superman tonight. And, this is a Marvel. We've advertised True Believers always as a Marvel and MCU podcast, but, that we are the Fandom Podcast Network, which means we are talking about everything in fandom. And two, if you want to check out all the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network, see that little QR code on your screen? Give it a scan. It's going to take you to our main podcast page at fpnet.podbean.com, and you'll be able to check out everything. But we have a disturbance because we are here to talk DC. And before I go any further, if we're going to be talking about DC and we're going to be talking about Superman, I need to bring in my own version of the Justice Gang, or is it the podcast gang? I'm not sure. But the first person I got to introduce, he's my brother from another mother. And for this podcast, he might be my crypto. I'm not sure. I got to talk to him about that. And I think he's messing with our Marvel Tesseract, which is causing all these problems and having this crossover. Mr. Kevin Reitzel, welcome to True Believers, taken over by the DC universe.
Bark, bark.
Get the toy. Tesseract, get the toy. Get the toy.
Tesseract is shaking, brother. He doesn't know what's going on. He's confused.
Well, I think we're all a little confused at this point, but we are here to talk about one of the biggest movies of the summer in Superman. And like I said, I can't cover Superman, just me and you. We do a great job. But
No. We need help. We need big time help.
We need our Justice Gang. And I have raided the Hall of Justice and found some people from across many different places. I've made to pull them out of a pocket dimension that I kept keeping prisoner into, just to be on the safe side. But first and foremost, it is my pleasure, as always, to welcome the queen of movie foo back to the Fandom Podcast Network and on True Believers, one and only Lacey Adderhold.
Hello.
AKA Super Pants.
Good to see you, Lacey. Welcome.
Good. I'm so excited.
But I've got a couple other people here. We haven't seen them on, some of them we haven't seen on True Believers in a long time, so I'm glad to have them here. I want to welcome back one of our great friends of the network, and I'm so glad he's able to join us for this podcast, and that is the one and only Alex Autry.
What's up, gang?
Yay.
Welcome, Alex. Good to see you.
Good to be seen.
But we had somebody else, and I know he's a huge Superman fan, and he knows a ton about Superman. Plus, he's kind of the metamorpho of the Fandom Podcast Network. He is one of the hosts. He's the commander over at What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. He is the only one and only Commander Scott Botman.
I'm trying to generate the appropriate element, the element of surprise, because nobody expected me to be on an MCU podcast. Not that I dislike the MCU, but Superman's my favorite comic book character, favorite movie character, favorite character across so many fandoms. And I'm really proud of you, Kyle, for being willing to discuss the distinguished competition, as Stanley famously referred to DC. So yeah, this is great. And Lacey, I'm super jealous of all those awesome DVDs, Blu-rays, multimedia stuff in that giant, it looks like a catacomb of collection. That's just like, that is the Hall of Justice right there.
I took the best nap ever there. It was great.
Yeah.
I thought Kevin had a lot of stuff on his shelf, but
Lacey,
No.
so she's the queen of movie foo.
I have I have a human-sized dog bed over there, and Kevin dragged it over and was just like, "Whoa."
Yeah, it was great. Awesome.
Well, Scott, you mentioned it too, because there's going to be a little change happening at True Believers. Kevin messed with the Tesseract just a little too much. He took it to Australia, which, you get upside down, down under. Things get screwy. The True Believers world is expanding because we are now covering all comic book related movies and TV shows. We have James Gunn bringing DC back. There's so many other good things out there. We love our MCU, of course, but we are expanding things, and we are doing it in a big way with James Gunn really officially kicking off movies with the new DC Studios logo. Loving the fact that they've gone back to the classic look. But guys, we are here to talk about Superman, and I am excited for this. That we've all been waiting for this movie for a long time, since James Gunn announced he was taking over the DC universe, and he was kicking things off with. It's just exciting. But I want to talk a little bit too, before we get too into Superman, about some things that have happened or are coming soon to the Fandom Podcast Network, especially on the True Believer side. coming out this week as we're recording this show is going to be ready to launch. Ironheart. We covered the first season. Kevin and Lacey joined me for that. We're talking about the latest Marvel show on Disney Plus. Maybe some mixed reactions, but we're going to dive into it. We had some great discussions. Talked about some amazing cast members in that show. Check it out. And of course, you all know the big thing that came out of Ironheart, that certain guy whose name starts with an M. And we definitely talk about that in that episode. And going back to, we did our coverage of Thunderbolts. We had a great time with our own version of the Thunderbolts here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And then we by our good friend Kat Cedar, he knowing all things Marvel, as we covered everything that happened with Daredevil Born Again Season 1. We had a great time with that. And 2, we got something coming up right around the corner because Fantastic Four First Steps is days away from entering theaters, and we will be covering that here on True Believers podcast. If you can, Lacey, just give me a second here because I want to see what you're holding up right now. Hold that up again because you are holding up the Fantastic Car popcorn bucket. You snuck in and got it a little early, didn't you?
I did. Super exciting.
Well, we will be covering more about popcorn buckets and Fantastic Four on our episode of True Believers. But I just wanted to make sure we gave a little love to that too. But guys, we are here to talk about Superman 2025. And now going forward, guys, I'm just going to say right now, we are headed into spoiler territory. This is a reaction show to Superman. We're going to be going deep dive into everything that is Superman. Mr.
Can I push the button?
I think I can allow you to push the button.
Yay!
So, again, one last time. Spoiler zone starting now. And guys, Superman is here. I pulled a few of the movie posters because this movie had a lot of fun movie posters. I love this IMAX one here. One of my favorite shots right here was Superman and Crypto, pulled right from the All-Star Superman comic. Even got a little bit from the foreign posters here. I love this one of him walking towards the Fortress of Solitude, which they gave the classic Superman crystal look to. I'm so excited for this. But guys, let's get into talking about Superman. And even though we are doing DC, we do things here at True Believers because we were established as a Marvel podcast. We do things in phases. And just because DC and other comic things are invading us, we are not changing up phases because we do not want to make the Tesseract too angry, do we, Kevin?
No, not at all. No.
So with that, let's kick things off and get into phase 1 of this episode of True Believers. Okay, guys. Well, I kind of did a little research. I was curious to see what some of the plot synopsises were from different websites here. And one of the things we always like to do is we like to do the IMDb plot synopsis. This is what IMDb said. Superman must reconcile his alien Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as reporter Clark Kent. As the embodiment of truth, justice, and the human way, he finds himself in a world that views these as old-fashioned. So, IMDb giving their typical, very light, brief plot here.
I'll get a little bit closer to the mic. You're cutting out again. Just
okay. Well, and so I went to Wikipedia here, and here's what I got from Wikipedia. 30 years ago, Jor-El and Laura Vaughn sent their infant son Kal-El to Earth to escape the destruction of their home planet Krypton. Raised as Clark Kent by adoptive human parents Jonathan and Martha Kent in Smallville, Kansas, the Kryptonian gains incredible powers from the sun. Inspired to heroism by Jor-El and Laura's farewell message, half of which was damaged on the journey, Clark introduces himself as Superman, the most powerful meta-human on Earth, to the world 3 years ago. Clark maintains his secret identity and a job as a reporter for the Daily Planet in Metropolis, where he works alongside Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane, the latter of whom is in a relationship with Clark and aware of his secret identity. Now, guys, those are fun descriptions, but let's get into it. I've got a little bit more in-depth plot synopsis here. And Mr. Reisel, as I'm doing that, would you care to drive the slideshow for me as we go through the plot synopsis?
I don't know if you need help.
Absolutely. So Clark Kent Superman stops the nation of Boriva from invading the neighboring country of Yarnpor and warns Borivian President Basil Gokos to leave Yarnpor alone. In Metropolis, Superman is defeated for the first time by a metahuman called the Hammer of Borivia and flees to the Fortress of Solitude in Antarctica, with the help of the superpowered dog Crypto. They are followed by Angela Spica, the engineer, and an ally of billionaire Lex Luthor. Superman's robots use concentrated solar radiation to heal him and comfort Superman with a message from his birth parents Jor-El and Lara, who sent him to Earth to save him from the destruction of Krypton. The message was damaged during the journey, so only the first half can be played. Superman returns to Metropolis and is again beaten by Hammer, who is secretly Luthor's metahuman Ultraman. Superman agrees to be interviewed by Lois Lane, his girlfriend and reporter colleague at the Daily Planet, leading to an argument when Lois presses him on the legal and ethical implications of his actions. Luthor unleashes a kaiju on Metropolis as a distraction while he infiltrates the fortress with Ultraman and the Engineer. They order the power of the robots, capture Crypto, and discover the Kryptonian message. The Engineer restores the damaged portion. Superman rescues civilians while fighting the kaiju with the Justice Gang, a team composed of Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, and Hot Girl. Despite Superman wanting to take the creature alive, Mr. Terrific kills it. Luthor broadcasts the Kryptonian message, and Superman is shocked to hear the second half, in which his parents urge him to conquer Earth and take many wives to restore the Kryptonian race. Public opinion turns against Superman, especially when he angrily confronts Luthor looking for Crypto. Lois reassures Superman she believes he is good and confesses his love to her before surrendering himself to the U.S. government. They hand him over to Luthor for detainment and questioning inside an artificial pocket universe where Luthor secretly holds his enemies, including Crypto. Superman is imprisoned with the metahuman Metamorpho. Metamorpho is manipulated by Luthor via his infant son Joey, and it leverages him to transmute his body into kryptonite, rendering Superman powerless. While questioning Superman, Luthor murders his supporter Malik Ali, which horrifies Metamorpho. The latter helps Superman escape, and they free Joey and Crypto. Lois convinces Mr. Terrific to help find Superman, and they enter the pocket universe, rescuing the others. Lois takes Superman to recuperate with his adoptive human parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent. Jonathan tells the demoralized Superman that his actions determine who he is, not the message from his birth parents. Luthor's girlfriend, Eve Tessmacher, who is infatuated with Daily Planet photographer Jimmy Olsen, and aren't we all, provides evidence to the Daily Planet that Luthor is aiding Borivia in return for half of Joan Purr's territory. Luthor imprisons her and lures Superman back to Metropolis by opening an unstable portal to the pocket universe, which creates a growing rift in reality. Superman sends Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Metamorpho to stop Borivia from invading Urim-Par again. Hawkgirl kills Gurkos, and Green Lantern invites Metamorpho to join the Justice Gang only because he likes the name of the Justice Gang. In Metropolis, Superman and Mr. Terrific fight the Engineer and Ultraman. Superman defeats the Engineer and learns that Ultraman is a clone of himself. Luthor is so intent on defeating Superman that he refuses to close the rift, which splits the city in half. Superman and Crypto defeat Ultraman, who is pulled into a black hole, and then they detain Luthor at his headquarters. Mr. Terrific is able to close the rift while Superman challenges Luthor's ideology and expresses hope that Luthor will one day accept humanity in them both. Lois and Jimmy expose Luthor's schemes to the public, clearing Superman's name. Luthor and his associates are arrested, and those trapped in the pocket universe, including Eve, are freed. Lois confesses that she loves Clark too. As Superman recovers at the fortress, his cousin Kara Zor-El drunkenly arrives to pick up Crypto. The robots comfort Superman with footage of his childhood on Earth with his human parents. And guys, that is the plot and story of Superman. I'm just going to let you guys dive in. I want your first reactions to seeing this, how everything went. I'm going to kind of go around the horn. Alex, we haven't had you on the FPN in a while, so I want your first impressions and thoughts on Superman. And you're on mute.
Got him.
I know I'm still muted. So Lacey and I went and saw this together the Thursday before it came out. And honestly, we weren't 100% sure what it was going to be like. We had our hopes. And I honestly, I was blown away with just how good it was. It actually offered something that we didn't get a whole lot of inside Man of Steel or Justice League or even Batman v Superman. And that's the idea that this guy is wholesome. And that was just like a refreshing change for our superheroes, was to have a guy who was raised well and didn't have issues. There's a lot of love to be given to this movie for some of the ideas and the overall scenes that we were given. The fact that we were already shown the first 3 minutes of the movie almost a year ago, and we had no idea, but they give us that scroll at the beginning. It says 300 years ago, we had God. We entered the world of gods and monsters. And I popped for that. I was like, oh, okay. And then it was like, 30 years ago we had this, and 3 years ago he arrived, and 3 minutes ago he got his ass handed to him. That's like, oh, that's how we're starting this. We're not starting off with a God character. We're starting off with a guy who just got murdered and needs help. And I thought that was, he was showing that he was willing to continue the fight and not give up. And I thought that was one of the best things about the movie. The first 5 minutes tells you what kind of movie you're going to see, and it's the best.
Scott, what about you? What were your initial reactions to Superman?
Well, I think Alex nailed it all really well. Also, Kyle, excellent synopsis, thorough and detailed. Good job. Unlike Alex, though, I didn't go in, not knowing what to expect. I knew this was going to be a big home run for Superman fans. Now, I wasn't sure it was going to be a huge box office success because, we have a little superhero fatigue going on, but it's doing really well monetarily so far. We're recording this on July 23rd, broadcasting it July 23rd. And so far it has been reeling in a pretty good amount of cash. Now, is it going to break a bunch of records? I don't know. But when I went with my usual crew to our newly renovated, locally owned movie theater, by the way, it was excellent. And we had so much fun with it. I recognized so many Superman Easter eggs, but we also had plenty of people in our theater who weren't Superman experts. They would not call themselves super fans, but they had a great time. We even took 2 kids with us who had never seen a Superman movie. They were like 12 and 13, 11 and 12, 13, never seen Man of Steel, never seen the Christopher Reeve movies from the 1980s, never seen Brandon Routh's turn as Superman in 2006, maybe had seen a Superman cartoon, but they had no idea about him and his history and so on. But they loved it. They were fine picking it up, like Nathan just said in the comment there, in media res, in the middle of the action. I think Star Wars primed a whole generation of moviegoers to be okay with that. And we even had a Star Wars-esque feel with James Gunn giving us kind of a modified crawl with those words on the screen that Alex was talking about. So, I went in knowing it was going to be a great story, and I was not disappointed at all. I clapped, cheered, yelled, laughed out loud. I mean, the audience was into it, and it was great. I can't wait to see it again.
Scott, if I can jump on real quick, you questioned about the gross, whether it was going to be a big success. It was the 4th highest opening weekend for 2025, and has already made over 500 million worldwide. Awesome. So I think just from that, you can call that a success.
That's spectacular. Thanks, Alex.
Lacey, what about you? What were your reactions? I know you've already seen it at least 2 times, or are you up to 3 now? Oh, I mean, no wonder the box office is so big.
I saw it with Alex, and I see. The other thing is, I hadn't seen
that. That was a 5 she was holding up for the listeners, by the way.
Yeah, I've seen it 5 times. I saw it yesterday and today because I wanted to be fresh. But yeah, so I didn't watch a single trailer. Anytime a trailer comes, I don't like trailers anymore, because in the 80s you'd watch a trailer to be 2.5 minutes long and you wouldn't have any idea. The only thing you know is that you wanted to go see the movie. Now you get a 15-minute teaser and you know the ending because they show you the bad guy getting killed or something. You're just like, really? So I don't watch any trailers anymore. If I know I'm going to watch a movie, I avoid trailers completely. So I had no idea what I was walking into. I knew a couple of the actors just from posters, but that's it. I loved it. I'm a Christopher Reeve, like he's my guy. And And I think David Corenswet really, I think James Gunn picked all the right people, and it made me happy. And there was comedy and heart. And I feel like because he kept getting his butt kicked so much, and he was genuinely like a member of a team, kind of. I mean, he would call in the cavalry, right? Which kind of gave, John McClane or, Indiana Jones vibes, right? Like, that he's not, I mean, he can get his butt kicked and he's going to keep going. And I really loved that. And I have so much more to say, but I feel like that's just like my little bits, yeah.
Mr. Reisel, if you would pop in, I would love to get your thoughts and your initial thoughts on Superman.
It was great just to see a fun Superman movie that had so much heart and made me tear up a couple of times. Every time that guy pulls Superman out of the crater, it gets to me. It got to me in the trailer when I originally saw it. I knew I was in for something different and kind of special when they showed that and teased that with the trailer. And then seeing it play out and then seeing what happens to him, it's heartbreaking. But that's one of the things that I loved about this, though, is that it tugged at your emotions and it made Superman normal as like a normal human being with feelings and consequences. And I love the fact that we see him get his ass kicked right off the bat. And then we see how the story folds out and how that was allowed to happen. And I love the fact that he's not invincible and that, he's was raised well and he's showcasing those values. And it's nice to see that. It's nice to see the humor back as well. And just kind of a tease of what we're going to see with the rest of the James Gunn universe. And I'm really, really excited to see what happens next.
For me, I went into this movie trying to not have huge expectations because I've always been a believer Superman is one of the hardest characters to put into film. It's a hard translation because one of the hardest things to do is humanize Superman. And Christopher Reeve did such a phenomenal job back in the past. Going into this, I just wanted to go in and have a Superman film I enjoyed, and I got that. I got a Superman that was positive. I got a Superman that was filled with hope, that wasn't giving me the Scott Snyder side of darkness and destruction of Metropolis in this horrific way. Krypto put a huge smile on my face every time he was on the screen. Krypto, in my opinion, kind of steals this movie. James Gunn does a beautiful job of incorporating several classic Superman stories into this film. I think the casting from top to bottom was great. Making the decision not to retell Superman's origin, just kind of briefly going over it. And we've seen this happen in several comic book movies. It kind of started when Marvel brought Spider-Man into the MCU. They didn't really give him his full origin story because we know it. And I think that was the right decision here. And it really kind of sets things up well. One of the things I had read in reviews was people said this movie was too crowded. I never felt that way watching this. And I felt this movie worked at a good pacing. And I think it really helped it succeed. And I just really enjoyed this film. I had fun. And it's been a while since I could say that about a comic book thing, period, where I felt like I was able to watch something and just have fun and enjoy it. And I think James Gunn succeeded so well. And we're going to be talking about a lot of those things as we continue on with this podcast. But guys, I want to kind of get into the cast of Superman because I think this is actually very important because this was a huge factor. Now, I'm going to say this a little later on. We're going to get in more of a deep dive of the big triad of Superman, Lex, Superman himself, and Lois Lane. But I just want to talk briefly about some of these characters. You don't go in too deep, but just give me an initial thought on David Corenswet as Superman. Because I think this is much like Christopher Reeve. This was his breakout role, and I think he did a phenomenal job of humanizing Superman. And I'm curious to see what you guys, just real quick. Like I said, we'll be diving a little bit deeper into these three main characters in a little bit in the podcast. But give me just your initial thoughts on David as Superman. Scott, you kick things off.
Yeah, so as I wrote in my review on Facebook, David is relatively unknown. Like you said, Cal, this is kind of his breakout role. I mean, he's been in a few things. It's not like he's a completely unknown actor, But that kind of helped him here, as is often the case when you're taking on a big iconic character, because nobody really had any preconceived expectations about, oh, well, this is how David is going to play Superman. It's not like when Michael Keaton was announced as Batman back in the 1980s and people were like, oh, geez, it's going to be comedic Batman or whatever they were expecting of Keaton at that time. Corn Sweat didn't have any of those preconceived ideas really heaped upon him. And he hits it out of the park here because he understands, and obviously this has a lot to do with Gunn's script and Gunn's direction, that he's got to focus on the man part, not the super part, right? He's got to focus on the humanity of this particular superhero. Superman is the prototypical comic book superhero. If he hadn't been what a great creation he was by Siegel and Schuster, we wouldn't really have a superhero industry in Hollywood or even a comic book superhero industry. Even Stan Lee once said, I did this because I loved Superman. I started in comics because I liked Superman when I was younger. And of course, plenty of other superheroes are based on just one facet of the Man of Steel, right? Not the entirety of everything. And so I think that David and Gunn, by extension, do such a great job here because they focus on what makes him humanity and how the real super thing about him is he has all this amazing power, but he uses it to do good things instead of doing bad things. And that is exactly what David does. I saw an excellent analysis here that when he's arguing with Lois Lane about his actions in Jarnpur, that he is there as a fireman, not as a policeman. He's there to save lives, not to enforce particular laws or order, or to really, lay down the law and make sure that everything ends with peace. He's there because people were going to die. And when you have the ability to save them, you should go do it.
Lacey, what about you? Give me just an initial thought, your initial early impression of David as Superman.
I would say he's got the look. He has, I loved him as Superman. He's now my number 2 Superman behind Christopher Reeve. And I've been debating on that for a couple weeks now.
I think it's more your thoughts on that in a little bit too, because we're going to talk about some of that.
Well, I'm sure that'll be in a minute. But I think that Superman is a hopeful character. Hope is, in the Reeve iterations and several other iterations, the S on the chest is the symbol for hope for Krypton, right? And so, though they didn't really discuss that specifically in this film, I think that that's one of the things that we struggled with in the last iteration with the Snyderverse, was just that everything was really dark and everything was, I don't know, it was like the camera was grumpy, everything was dark and gray, and nobody was looking forward to anything. It was just sad, grumpy, angry, fighting, murder a bunch of buildings and then cause a bunch of damage. And then, which is actually one of the things I loved about this, was that the one time you see a lot of building problems, he turns around, he's like, is everybody okay? And he's deliberately trying, when he kills the creature, he catches it and moves it to the park so that it doesn't cause a bunch of damage. So he's genuinely a hopeful character. He rescues a squirrel, y'all. That right there. That is all you need to know about this Superman. He rescued a squirrel, and he says things like golly and gosh and I can be such a jerk sometimes. It's super. That's Superman.
Yep.
He rescued a squirrel, y'all. That's all I need to. Yeah.
So, Alice, give me just your quick first impression of David as Superman here.
He is my number 2. He is my number 2 Superman, and that is no insult on him at all. I grew up with Christopher Reeve. And here's the thing. Here's the big thing. There are kids right now who are going to grow up with him. And that's their Superman.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to know. Yeah. Also, there is a meme out there of a squirrel saying, "No, Superman, don't save me." And it just says, if Zack Snyder directed this Superman.
Kevin, you want to pop in real quick here and give your initial thoughts as David as Superman?
That was funny. That's funny, Alex. He's just, you can see that David really captured the essence of what we've been missing from Superman. Let's be honest. We've been missing from Superman. Someone that you could just relate to and hang out with, just little things like the way he talks to people. That was mentioned earlier. The way that he's, talks to his coworkers, when he's Clark Kent, and even he has emotions too. That like when he's getting frustrated with being interviewed by Lois. That was a great scene as well. And being someone who can show that vulnerability and do it as convincing as David did really was amazing. And I think that they did a great job starting this new DCU Gunn universe, whatever you want to call it, and just getting the main character done right. And if you don't like your Superman, if you can't root for your Superman, that's going to be a problem. And I felt like we are, and it makes us just excited, not only just to see more of him, but how he will interact with other characters that we haven't seen yet in this new universe.
Okay, guys, we're going to get into Nicholas Hoult and Rachel Brosnahan as Lois and Lex a little bit more in depth a little later in the podcast. But I want to talk about, because there are a lot of characters in this, but guys, let's be honest. We got to talk about Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. I mean, first of all, one of James Gunn's favorites. As soon as we all heard the casting of Guy Gardner, we're like, oh, this is perfect. He insisted on the bowl cut. He was so good in this movie and so much fun. And he nailed Guy Gardner, Alex. I just felt like he was channeling his inner arrogant self for this role.
It was as if Captain Hammer had powers. It was a great, as much as I love him, and it's probably because I was so excited for Nathan Fillion in the role, that I was not prepared for Mr. Terrific, who I absolutely think steals every scene he's in.
Oh, I completely agree with you completely. Lacey, I'm going to steal you because I know I'm going to butcher his name, and I love this actor, and I don't want to do that.
It's Eddie Gathegi.
Yeah, he was brilliant as Mr. Terrific. I loved him in For All Mankind on Apple TV, and he was great in that. But I think he was one of the highlights of this film as Mr. Terrific as well. But Lacey, I know your love for Nathan. I got to let you talk a little Guy Gardner.
Well, I'm not one of the 348 women, but I would say that haircut it works for the character. I think it just it works for the character because he is so committed to it that it's one of those things where he's like, it's almost like he got the bad haircut, but he was like, I'm just gonna, it's like a boy named Sue. You give him the name Sue so that he gets tough. So that's kind of what it feels like, and he's got the attitude and the, I don't know, he's a little narcissistic, a little bit. I love the character. It's fun. I can't wait to see what they do with it. I'm ready. I'm already ready for a Justice Gang movie. I'm ready for however many I don't know how many people are going to be in it, but it's going to be amazing. And Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, and I forgot her first name, Merced, who is Isabella, yes, who is Hawkgirl. Like, I think that he makes a great leader, and I love the fact that he turned around at one point and said, I'm this close to just creating a huge hammer and beating you to death or whatever, which was a delightful little shout out to Captain Hammer, which I loved. So, or I feel like it was a shout out. It might not be. I might just be reading stuff into it, but
Yeah. Scott, I'm afraid to tell Lacey what Batman does to Guy Gardner.
All I got to say is, one punch. I can't believe it. One punch. Anyway, I won't spoil that, 30-year-old comic or whatever it is. But But yeah, Guy Gardner, oh my gosh, Nathan Fillion definitely plays him like Captain Hammer so great. But really, guys, you always have to remember when it comes to Guy Gardner, we look at him and we're like, how is this dude a superhero? How is this dude chosen by the Green Lantern Corps? And the answer is, of course, the ring chooses you, the green rings choose you based on your willpower. And nobody has more willpower than a guy who has convinced himself that he is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now, we all know he's not the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he doesn't know that. And that's the important part. And Guy Gardner, for better or worse, is an effective and potent Green Lantern. But is he a nice guy? No. He's the polar opposite of Superman in this movie. He's the answer, if you will, to Clark's homespun, gosh, hey dude, kind of, homespun wisdom and heroism. A Guy is a different kind of hero. And, he even tells that kid in John Purr, you got an upgrade, kid, when he comes to rescue him because Superman's a little busy with all the stuff happening in Metropolis and the black hole situation. As far as Eddie as Mr. Terrific, wow, he absolutely lived up to his name. He was terrific. And I love seeing fans who had no idea that this character even existed in the DC universe, get an introduction to this guy from such a talented actor, finally getting his due as a superhero actor after being treated so badly as Darwin over in the MCU. But anyway, we won't bring that up. Yeah, we're going to block it out. And Hawkgirl, I love, oh, sorry, Lacey. Yeah.
No, I just want to say that when you said that, who better to choose for the ring to choose as a man, and I swear I thought you were going to say with this haircut. I just
doesn't he have to have so much self-confidence to walk around with that thing on his head?
I know, that's
what?
Right? It's so true.
Anyways, Hawkgirl, Isabella actually wasn't given a whole lot to do here. I love that Gunn made sure to keep in the scene where she executes her own brand of justice on the president of Baravia. And Isabella Merced did as well as she could in every moment that she got. I wasn't a huge fan of having Hawkgirl scream a lot. Not every version of the Hawkgirl character is emphasizing the hawk screech, but hey, I mean, she took it and made it her own. So the actress does a great job here, and she certainly looks the part, and she wields that Thanagarian mace to the nth degree. Thank you.
Yeah, I see the joke you made there. Mr. Reitzel, we wouldn't be doing you a disservice if we didn't get your thoughts on the Justice Gang and those performances.
You had me at middle finger Green Lantern, force field thingies, whatever you want to call them. That was just apparently that was very Guy Gardner-ish from what I've been told.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm man crushing on Nathan Fillion in general. And now you made a haircut look cool. I'm just saying, I mean, now no one will stop. Now everyone will start talking about Mark Davis. So, but that was a Raiders joke, by the way. The cast, the secondary, or whatever you want to say, the Justice Gang was fantastic. But I want to give a shout out to this guy right here as Metamorpho, Anthony Kerrigan. I'm a huge fan of Anthony Kerrigan, especially his run during, I believe it was Barry. And he always plays, he's always plays this character that has this kind of bald look to it, and he's fantastic in that TV series. Please check it out. He's absolutely fantastic. But this is a perfect example of why I love Gunn. James knows how to pick these weird characters just out of the comic books that maybe didn't have a chance to shine as well as other main characters does. I mean, he made Polka Dot Man effing cool in the Suicide Squad movie, and you cared about him, and this is a guy that you're like, okay, wait a minute, oh, okay, I see what you're planning on doing with this guy, and I'm so glad that he's made Metamorpho a character in the Justice Gang. And just the emotions that you got through this film with what was going through him and his kid. And I love that that was something that Superman fought for, and he helped him. And it was one of my favorite moments in the movie. Go Metamorpho. I love this. And Anthony Kerrigan, well done.
Apparently, Alex, you can just get into the Justice Gang as long as you agree with Guy.
Pretty much, yeah. I will say this. One of the great things about having characters like Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho, and even to an extent Hawkgirl in this movie, is that it isn't as big a risk to make these characters, because if they don't perform well in the movie, it's okay. And there was another comic book company that did the same thing with their movies, because when it launched, Iron Man was not the most crucial character in Marvel Comics. That was the Fantastic Four. That was the X-Men. So when that movie came out, you had that issue where, if the Iron Man movie didn't play, that was all right. They could make their money off it and move on. It wasn't made to be the starting point of a much bigger thing. So you had that as an actual option later on. So having these characters who are absolutely solid, absolutely fantastic in this movie is a bonus for Superman. Superman, yes, that is your marquee, but it's these other characters that we keep talking about. And that's what's going to help the DC universe.
Scott, I want to go to you because I know you know the comics very well as too. James portrayed Metamorpho a little different than how we're used to Rex Mason in the comics, but he kept the key elements of the character, and I think that was a big thing.
Major respect for keeping key elements. Good job, Kyle. Element man. Yeah. Metamorpho here is, he's more relatable, right? Mm-hmm. Instantly giving him the kid made it to where the audience could feel the humanity even from the most non-human looking member of the Justice Gang on screen here in Superman. Like Kevin said, Anthony Kerrigan is just really great at doing this part. And he gave some real soul to a guy who, is just kind of a freaky character. And not to belabor the pun too badly, but he was able to metamorphose into a real good conglomeration or amalgam of all the parts to really take that character and make him somebody not just that people want to know more about, but they enjoy every moment that he's on screen. You're really rooting for him to save his kid and to help Superman. And then you get to see him do all these cool things where he becomes almost more a shapeshifter-esque character than he normally is in the comics, when he was changing form and becoming a gaseous element or a liquid element or so on and so forth. Just really a really cool interpretation of that power set. And Kerrigan does a great job of emoting while sometimes not having a body, which is not easy to do.
Lacey, I want to get your quick thoughts on Metamorpho too, because I think he was made the most sympathetic character in this movie, even though he was a metahuman. I think the crisis that he goes through in this and what he's put through is some of the most sympathetic, makes him maybe the most sympathetic character in the movie.
I think that when you first see him, we think that he is, he's being blackmailed or extorted, and so with all these different characters, James Gunn picks. You never know who's going to be a good guy and bad guy. Oftentimes, people switch sides, or you don't know who you can trust. And I like that they made this very clear. That is his child. He must do this thing. And then when he started crying after the horrible Russian roulette debacle, that right there, I think, brought a feeling of feelings.
You could say element. You could say element.
I know.
Metamorpho would like it. If he was here, he'd be like, ha.
But then he also is sort of the reason for, or he sparks the what I think is the funniest line in the film, where Mr. Terrific said, "Superman, mean dog in a cape, a weird baby, and a squiggly man." It was just a great weird, because he is this strange kind of being, and I really like the way Anthony Kerrigan played him. I think he's definitely I think he's destined for more or DCU visibility in the future. Yeah,
he has a great moment while they're still in prison, in which he openly asks the question, "Can you get to my son in time?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which tells you everything you need to know about this character.
Yep.
This character is doing what he has to do because he's under duress, and he would rather do anything else.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he pulls it off, and I think that's fantastic. I think it's one of the best parts of the movie.
Okay, guys, we got a few other cast members. I just want to get some quick thoughts on as we go through. Maria Gabriel da Fara playing the engineer, which is a character that is going to be very interesting, possibly going forward in the DC universe. This is a character that is actually not even an original DC character. She was created in Image Comics in a book called The Stormwatch, which became the famous book The Authority. And The Authority is one of the projects James Gunn is trying to see if he can get a movie made out of. The engineer has been one of the characters from that when Jim Lee sold his Wildstorm comics to DC that has been featured in several things. What did you think of this character? The fact that they brought her in as initially a villain. Lacey, I see your hand up. I'm going to let you chime in first because I know you don't know the comics like some of us here do.
Yes. I just want to know if anyone else thinks that she is a mecha version of Guy Gardner. Like anything she can, and she's the mecha version of of a Green Lantern. Or of a lantern. I know that the different colors in the lantern cores mean different things, but I mean, she's basically anything she can imagine, she can create with her mechanical bots. Right.
One of the things she said when making this when doing this character was she indicated that every time she uses her power, she loses more of her humanity.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really cool concept. And it means that as we go along, we could see something drastically bad happen to her.
Yeah.
I'm talking like Superman 3 bad.
Oh, no. Yeah. I kind of feel like she's her powers are like combination of what happens when Guy Gardner fades into Brainiac.
Or Scott, Cyborg with no compassion.
There you go. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I do like the character. I think the actress was great. I think the comment that Lex makes where he says, "Thank you." Is it Angela?
Yeah, Angela.
Yeah, he says, "Thank you, Angela. Your pride won't be making decisions for us today." I was like, "Oh, honey. Yeah. Okay, dang." And then there's the one really cool thing where she's standing up and then she flips on her feet and then her feet become her head. I don't know why they did that. It's a completely it's completely unnecessary, but it looked really cool.
It's going to sell some action figures.
It kind of reminded me of the Legolas jumping on the horse from behind, from in front. And it was like a weird oh, okay, so she can do that. Okay, cool.
Scott, I want to get your thoughts on the engineer because again, this is one of the kind of newer characters for Superman lore.
I love that we have an Image Comics origin character on the big screen in live action. 1990s Scott would never have believed this would happen, but if anybody could pull it off, it's Jim Lee selling his portfolio to DC all those years ago, and then now we've got a character from Stormwatch in a Superman movie. What is happening? Anyway, it's great. And Maria here does an amazing job portraying the character. I really did like Lacey's comment that it reminds her of Guy Gardner. And of course, Lacey means Guy Gardner in this film. But if you read comics, you know that later, once Guy Gardner, spoiler alert from the 1990s, when he stops being a Green Lantern, he discovers that he's actually not 100% human. He's half human, half alien. And his alien ability allows him to unlock the idea that he can form his body parts into weapons. And his comic book title becomes Guy Gardner Warrior. And he's like a reddish costume. And if he thinks of katanas, his hand will turn into a katana. If he thinks of a blaster comes out of his arm, etc. And so when she said, "Doesn't this guy remind you of Guy Gardner?" I thought she was about to bust out some, comic book knowledge and be like, especially when he's Guy Gardner Warrior and he turns parts of his body into weapons. And I'm like, yes, she absolutely reminds me of that because Guy ends up with the ability to do that. And the concept is that it's a type of superpower that rewards your own creativity, which is a great idea. And so I love that the engineer is in this movie and she is taking that idea to the extreme, but that her drawback, her weakness, her kryptonite. What's that stuff that Superman's kryptonite? It's kryptonite. Yeah, her weakness is that she loses part of her humanity every time that she taps into this ability. And so that's a really great narrative element and dramatic structure to bring to a Superman film.
Alex, real quick, any other thoughts you have on the engineer?
No, they nailed it. I love the performance. I thought it was really cool, and was nice getting to see there's just something so right about a really badass woman next to Lex Luthor.
Yeah, I agree. Kevin, you have any thoughts on the engineer? Because I know this is a pretty new character in the mix.
Pretty cool actually. Good powers. I like that she was like, I guess the right hand man, so to speak, but the right hand woman for Lex, and that some of the fight scenes with what she was able to create with her, her ability was pretty cool. She scared me too, but also good looking.
Well, Kevin, stick around because I want to go through some of these other characters real quick and get some of your thoughts chimed in on this too. Guys, if we have Nathan Fillion in a movie, that means Alan Tudyk must be involved in somehow. And when you add in James Gunn factor, we're just breaking laws if they're not in together. In this, you had the robots. Alan Tudyk was, of course, I believe he went by robot number 4 later on, Gary.
Gary.
But what I love too was that all these robots in this film ended up being the James Gunn friend list. You had Michael Rooker, you had Palm Clemente voicing these. So it was his way of sneaking in all of his buddies. But of course, Alan Tudyk was the one who stood out. Kevin, you are kind of our Alan Tudyk clone around here sometimes. So I got to let you kick things off here when we're talking about a character voiced by Alan Tudyk.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I do. It was great to hear his voice voicing a character like this. It's kind of come to the point, between him and his character in Rogue One and Andor, and just other stuff, Resident Alien, and of course all the other stuff he's been in. It's just he's got a soothing voice, and for some reason, I'm not sure why, but I feel like watching A Knight's Tale right now. I'm just saying, I remember seeing behind the scenes, they actually made a full working mock-up of the droid head. And I know there's a lot of CG going on to fill out the rest of it, but they actually made a full mock-up with the droid, voicing and the jaw moving and everything. So it just shows more detail into this, and then getting someone like Alan is just great.
Lacey, I know you're a huge Alan fan, and the fact that they use these robots to bring in all of James Gunn's buddies as well. I mean, I just thought that was great, and I thought these robots, for being robots, they added something to Superman's humanity in a way too.
Between the robots and the Raptor guards, I think pretty much everyone who's ever worked with James Gunn was in there. Michael Rosenbaum was one of the Raptor guards, and there were a couple other ones off the top of my head I can't remember, but I kept going, okay. But yeah, Alan Tudyk, he just has this he has the ability to start on one end of the spectrum and just completely go to the other. I don't even know how to describe it. He's so funny and endearing at the same time, for a robot. And the fact that he keeps making reference to not having humanity, but knowing what it is. He keeps making references, when he talks about the dog, he says, we feed it, but he probably knows that we couldn't care less whether it lives or dies. And then he talks about Supergirl, if I had whatever feelings or a soul, whatever he said I would be concerned about her about her actions. And it's interesting to see that I feel like I want his character to become self-aware so that he can, I guess he is technically self-aware, whatever that percentage of whatever is, I want him to become able to have those feelings. I feel like he keeps talking about it because he wants it. You know what I mean?
He did that in a movie called I, Robot.
Okay.
Scott, what did you think of Alan and the fact that James had all his buddies sneak in as these robots?
Oh, I love it when James gives his friends cameos, and this was kind of what those were, audio cameos. So, a pretty meta commentary there. I also love that we have Superman robots in a movie. I mean, that's a cliche in some Superman comic books. The Superman robots, sometimes they're robots that look like Superman himself. Sometimes they're more droidicas, like this version of Gary. Either way, I like that they are an integral part of the narrative here. And of course, Alan Tudyk nails the role because, as he said in one of the press conferences for this movie, well, if there's a robot around, I'm going to have to be it. And then Kevin talked about having the physical mock-up of Gary's face and head. They actually did an entire body for Tudyk to have nearby on set to, act like that. And so, yeah, it's really cool. And he does a great job. Tudyk does a great job of infusing humanity into Gary with his usual trademark disdain for some of the other characters. It felt a little bit like K2SO in the DC universe, to make a Star Wars reference, because I am the Star Wars guy here on the FPN too. But seeing number 4 and the rest of the Superman robots doing their thing in the Fortress of Solitude was a great nod to Silver Age Superman comics. So, and yeah, I love that he had that Gunn was able to get his buddies and of course he had his good luck charm in this film too, which some people say is Michael Rooker, but I think it's his brother Sean Gunn as Maxwell Lord was great. It's really cute.
Yeah, that was a great cameo. Alex, your thoughts on not only Alan Tudyk, but all the fact that Gunn, we need to be friends with James Gunn. Maybe we can get in some movies.
So, not 3 feet from where I'm sitting, is my autographed picture of K2SO, which says, "Congratulations, you're being rescued," because he wouldn't write down, "I am a leaf on the wind." I love this. I have a theory. He is saying that he has no humanity. He absolutely does, and Gary is just passive aggressive. There's a moment when I believe it's 12 says he smiled at me, and she's very excited about it. They have emotion. Him wanting to be called Gary is an emotion. He has them. I don't think he knows that he has them. And I think it's just what made Gary a better character. Yeah. And again, it shows even more so the kind of person that this Superman is. Because Gary says, "I want a name." And Superman says, "Well, 4 is a name." And his response is, "Well, so is Gary." What does he call him from that point on?
Gary. There we go.
Okay. I like Alex's interpretation a little better than my own pet theory about whether or not they have emotions. I feel like Gary is going to turn into this DCU's version of the Eradicator. Like it's going to go badly for a little while, and Superman's going to have to fight him in a future story.
This is a hopeful movie, Scott. We're not talking about the Eradicator.
Okay, all right. We won't mention the Eradicator.
I'm okay with him being Eradicator as long as he does the voice as King Candy.
There you go.
Okay, guys. I expect Superman people will want Superman to destroy him because the Eradicator is going to eradicate stuff, but Superman will talk him out of it because that's how David's Superman would handle the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, real quick, I just want to bring up Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr. Kevin, if you want to pop in for me real quick here too, because I need your thoughts on this as well. We've been trying to figure out, I always know with these comic book movies, we have a character who's kind of like the character who is the string through all these films. Frank Grillo voiced Rick Flag Sr. in Creature Commandos, which was the true kickoff to James Gunn's DC universe. He's back in this film, obviously playing his character now in live action. Is Frank Grillo, just real quick, I just want you guys to weigh in. Is Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr. being set up to be kind of the Nick Fury of this DC universe? Alex, you could kick it off there.
Yeah.
Scott?
I wasn't expecting that answer to be so short. I agree that he is being set up sort of being the Nick Fury, but also at the same time, I don't think DCU is going to need a Nick Fury. There won't be a need to create the Avengers Initiative or what have you to bring everybody together. We already started with everybody together. The Justice Gang, Maxwell Lord and them, that's going to be the connective tissue, if you will, amongst all the different superheroes.
Kevin, I know you're a Frank Grillo fan. I'm loving him being part of this.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know who any of these people are. I don't get a lot of these references. I know more about the MCU now, podcasting with you because I just follow the the movies and the TV series. So I'm curious. All I saw was Ant-Man saying, "God, they even look like bad guys," So, and he came across that way. But I love Frank Grillo. Just put Grillo in everything. I wish he was even a bigger star than he was. And he looks cool and he can hold it down. So I'm curious to see more of him, and I hope we do.
Lacey, what about just quick thoughts on Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr.? Kevin, stick around because I need you for the next thing.
I think he's fantastic. I love honestly, he's been in so many fun things. He's got that military kind of feel to him, but he also has that like main henchman or like bad guy. He can kind of play it off either way. And he's also just one of the nicest guys. Alex and I met him in Huntsville in what was it, April. Just the sweetest guy. And you're expecting kind of that gruff, but he was just super sweet. So
he does have a henchman-y look about him, though.
Right?
He is very hinchy.
Well, and also DC saved some money on the costume department by hiring Grillo because they're like, just bring your Crossbones gear. And he's like, I got it. No problem. I keep it in the car. I'm always
Can you wash it off? Yeah.
There we go. Okay, guys. Last, but certainly not least, the true star of Superman. I don't need to go anything. We got Crypto. I just want to give you guys each a chance to give your thoughts on Crypto real quick. Kevin, I know you love your animals. Let's let you kick things off with Crypto.
Yeah, this actually hit home with me a little bit because when I first traveled to Australia to visit Erin's family, I got to meet her dog Gracie, and it was an elderly dog, and she was not very friendly with a lot of people, but I was able to win her over instantly. One of the things that I loved about Gracie is what reminded me of Crypto is that it was a terrier style dog, but it always had like one ear kind of up and one down. And when you can open up a film and have a cute dog, yet still be a little annoying, you're going to win over a certain type of fans that love animals and love pets and don't like to see them injured in movies. We'll go to the website, is it don'tkillthedog.com or whatever like that. And there's a lot of people that are worried about that now. And I, it's one of those things that Erin and I have bonded on. And I love the fact that we get this wonderful dog doing super dog stuff. And what I love about the dog is the dog's a dog, loves chasing after things, and the fact that Superman Clark Kent can say, go get him, and he starts crunching all the robot cameras and stuff like that. And just, I love this. I think it's great. I love the fact that it was based off James Gunn's real dog too.
Yeah, talk about bring your pet to work day. Lacey, I know you are the animal lover too. Crypto.
Yes, I did see some videos of when they brought Ozu in to do the motion capture and everything, and it was just adorable. I think that looking at like when they had him in the little chamber and he said easiest way to contain a super dog is to put super squirrels in his head. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about Crypto. The fact that he kept going after the T-spheres is hilarious to me. And the fact that they used that to their advantage so that, he could get rid of the drones in the final fight it's just awesome. James Gunn is really good at incorporating the one thing that you don't think is going to be important about a character and making it the most important thing by the end. And that one scene or that one sentence or that one action or that one thing, he's really good at taking tiny little bits and pieces and making them work perfectly. And this is a very good example of that.
I feel like too, Lacey, that when you find out that Superman has a dog, it just makes him hotter.
The funny thing is, though, for the whole thing, he kept saying the dog, the dog, the dog. And when Lois said, it's a dog, he said, yeah, and he's not even a very good one, but he's alone and he's probably scared. It's not, I I was trying to figure out why he wouldn't say my dog, and then we find out at the end it's not even his dog. So yeah, I don't know.
Alex, your thoughts on Crypto?
Here's what you need to know about Crypto. After the movie was over, there was a 500% rise in animal rescue lookups on Google.
There you go.
That's how impactful that dog is.
Yeah.
And the first stinger, where he's just sitting on the moon looking at the Earth, like holding
From
Crypto.
All-Star Comics.
Oh,
Or All-Star Superman, excuse me.
Yeah, All-Star Superman.
yeah, love that.
Scott, I need your Crypto thoughts.
So last year at South Carolina Comic Con, there's a great picture of me with my backpack on, standing in front of a booth with a bunch of long boxes of comics. And there's a homemade paper from the owner of that comic shop plastered on one of them. That's a picture of Crypto, and it just says, "Invest in Crypto." And I'm like, this is the perfect joke, right? And so when we had Crypto announced as part of this movie, I was ecstatic because I love him from his deep cut, existence in the DC universe. And then last year, 2024, my own beloved dog, Meyer, a Dachshund, passed away across the Rainbow Bridge. So when I saw that there was going to be a dog, Superman's dog, in this movie, I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. That's part of the reason I knew their story was going to work out so well. And James Gunn, like always, uses an animal as like not just a self-insert. Guys, I feel like this is often, I know he said that this was inspired by Ozu, but I feel like sometimes, like Rocket Raccoon, that this is almost James Gunn's self-insert. Like, he's the doggy Sue, if you will. And so I feel like they did a great job with Crypto, making him just chaotic enough to remind the audience that, yes, he is a Kryptonian, but he's still a dog. And so, he's got the superpowers, but he's definitely not going to use them responsibly. And he's not well trained, and that's okay. He makes big messes, but he's lovable and he's loyal. And that's the thing about Crypto that you always have to remember, is he's going to take care of Superman. And the movie starts out with him taking care of Superman. And then Superman, of course, reciprocates, because that's how he does things.
Well, guys, one last thing here, because we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the great cast that filled out the Daily Planet. We'll talk about Lois, but what I loved about what they did with this group, I mean, Jimmy Olsen was great too, but they made them important. They saved Superman in their own way, and I think they did a phenomenal job. I love Wendell Pierce as Perry White. I'm a huge Wendell Pierce fan. I thought they did a phenomenal job. Give me your quick thoughts on the human side of Superman, the Daily Planet side of Superman. Lacey, I'm going to let you kick that one off.
The scene where he's walking into the Daily Planet after running through the crowd, through the traffic, and he says hello by name to everyone he walks past. He says hello to the front guard at the gate, at the door. Obviously Perry White and the sports guy. I have lost his name. Even after he says, "Hey, loser," he's like, "Oh, hey, Gary," or what's his name?
Steve Lombard.
Hey, Steve, yeah. And then he walks in and he does that little, because he's on the phone with his mom. He does that little like dance thing where he does this like the foot back and forth with Jimmy. And that's all you need to know about Jimmy Olsen. Like he's so excited for Clark Kent getting the front page story. The girls in the corner are like scoping him out, and he's just like, yeah, okay, cool. He's like the girl magnet, and even Lois is like, how do you do it? And he doesn't even acknowledge it. He just says, well, you said to call if I had anything, and so this is what I have. And the funny thing is that he's not interested in the one girl until someone else mentions that she's hot. Because when Lois says, dude, your hot girlfriend might be a genius. And he was like, hot? And then then you see him actually get the hug, and then she says we can be together forever. And he actually smiles, and he's like, he's into it, which is kind of interesting. I love that they had Cat Grant in there. I know her from the DC television show played by Ally McBeal in the Supergirl series. And so I don't know a lot about her otherwise. But yeah, so I love Scott Argazando as Jimmy Olsen saying, like, you owe me so big, and you don't even know how much you owe me. You just owe me.
Scott, your thoughts on the Daily Planet?
I feel confident in saying I'm the only person on the podcast tonight that has worked at a daily newspaper. So this is absolutely what it's like. They did a great job of taking New Millennium newspaper job and portraying it on screen. That scene in the T-Craft where Lois and the gang have to get the thing posted online so that they can make an impact while they have enough signal to finish, doing their work, but they all double check each other. And they get a quick edit from Perry, and then Perry turns the computer back over to Jimmy because Jimmy's the younger, tech-savvy millennial guy, and he has to go through multiple steps of the content management system in the software to make the post not only be live, but be viewable to everyone who visits the website, even if they don't have a subscription. You guys, I was just like sitting there. I feel like I'm at work right now. This is insane. I don't work at a daily anymore. I work at a weekly now, but it's a similar concept. And so, it was really cool to see them be 21st century journalists, but still be journalists. And of course, Lois Lane is absolute pistol and always will be in any correct portrayal of her. But the supporting cast is great. A shout out to my own Jimmy Olsen for years at the Daily Courier here in Forest City, North Carolina, Mr. Garrett Byers, an extremely talented photographer, an amazing artist, just like Jimmy. It's rare to be a full-time photographer at any newspaper these days, but Garrett pulled it off, and he was a total chick magnet and never knew.
Alex, what about you? What are your thoughts on how the cast of the Daily Planet went and their role in this film?
So Scott brought up a really interesting point, and it's the fact that of all of the things that feel antiquated, the Daily Planet in Superman had that potential to be the big antiquated thing. People don't buy newspapers anymore. It just doesn't happen. So for them to basically make it an online thing was one of the smartest things they could have done in this movie, because it kept you in the realization that this is happening now. This is what's happening in the present. Another thing I saw, I saw somebody post online. Thank you, James Gunn, for making Jimmy Olsen cool again. And I kept going, again? When was he cool before?
Smallville, he was pretty cool. Like he was kind of a catch in Smallville.
Skylar,
I think Mick Brooks's portrayal of Jimmy in Supergirl actually was pretty cool. A cool okay. Jimmy. Now he wasn't the classic ginger Jimmy, but major props to Gunn for making Jimmy Olsen ginger again. That was really cool.
Yeah, I thought Skylar killed it with that role. I think that Beck Bennett, great as Lombard. Lombard has always been a foil for Clark Kent.
Where's my seatbelt?
Yeah, and it was just a total jerk. And he has like a very tiny role, but you know that he's a jerk. You know that he's a jerk. That he's going to get his comeuppance. And so when he doesn't have a seatbelt, that scene is funnier. So yeah, no, I thought that the entire cast for the Daily Planet was just expertly not only casted but also utilized. Skylar may want to change how he's got Mutant Toes listed in his phone, but other than that, I think he's done okay.
Kevin, what about your thoughts on the cast that rounded out the Daily Planet?
Alex hit the nail on the head. They were utilized very, very well. And I just want to shout out Skylar again because I feel like what I loved about it was that, and by the way, I remember him. Not a lot of people like the reboot of or the continuation of the Vacation movie. He was excellent in that movie. That was when I kind of really noticed him, and he was very funny in that. And seeing him as Jimmy Olsen was great. And the fact that he was like this chick magnet makes me think he's drinking the same thing that Will Ferrell's character was drinking in the other guys, because all the chicks, for whatever reason, were attracted to his character in that movie. And Skylar was just great. I love Skylar, especially his reactions to like all weekend. It's just,
I'm putting them in my pocket. Yeah. His timing is insane. Like he's so funny. He's so good.
He's a really good comedic actor.
Yeah.
Well, guys, Kevin, the Tesseract's pretty glowing over there, I'm going to guess right now. So I need to burn a little energy off of that. So let's get into a little trivia about what that comes out of Superman. Okay, guys, we got a little DC trivia and some Easter eggs from Superman. Kevin, you want to help me out here with going over some of this trivia?
You got it, sir. So the first bit of trivia here, and I've actually seen this interview, and it was very cool to see this. The return of Superman's iconic trunks was requested by David Corenswet, who justified it thusly, quote, "I'm an alien from outer space who can fly and lift buildings, and I shoot laser beams out of my eyes that can dissolve things. I want kids to not be afraid of me. So what am I gonna wear?" And what I liked about that interview too is they was talking about how also he comes across as a little like not as threatening, and some people might underestimate him if they don't know who he is and what he can do. So also too, it's just a classic Spider-Man look, or excuse me, Superman look.
Yeah, a great Superman look. But Lacey, you mentioned this a little earlier too. One of the Raptor soldiers, the armed force employed by Lex Luthor to take down Superman, is played by Michael Rosenbaum, who of course previously played Luthor on Smallville.
Yep.
Kevin,
7 or 8 seasons, yeah.
There's a little Nathan Fillion, Guy Gardner trivia here.
The inclusion of Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner marks the 7th time that Fillion has appeared in a film directed by James Gunn, continuing the tradition of the actor making an appearance in most of Gunn's films, owing to the pair's long-time friendship.
Well, one of the great things too about this film is it pays homage to a lot of the different iterations of Superman from the past. And in this piece of trivia, we learned that both David Cornswet and Nicholas Hoult have admitted they watched Smallville growing up and got used to that series' iterations of Clark and Lex, respectively. Hoult told this to Michael Rosenbaum himself on his podcast, Inside of You, with Michael Rosenbaum. Kevin, you got a little musical trivia for me?
Oh, yeah. Superman is a fan of the fake band, the Mighty Crabjoys. You can spot the poster of the band in his room in Smallville. The band appears in other DCU projects. In Creature Commandos, Eric Frankenstein wears the Mighty Crabjoys t-shirt, and in Peacemaker, there's a billboard of the band.
Okay, guys, we've talked about some of the sources. James Gunn has mentioned famed Superman comic book Superman for All Seasons, which came out in 1998, Superman Ending Battle, which came out in 2002, Superman Birthright, which ran from 2003 to 2004, and All-Star Superman, which ran from 2005 through 2008, which was adapted into as All-Star Superman in 2011, and Superman Brainiac, which was also adapted as Superman Unbound for inspirations for this film. And lastly, guys, this is one of the big things everybody was talking about when they were coming out of Superman. If you had the sharp eyes, there was this great mural in the Hall of Justice to the JSA, the original heroes of the DC universe. And you saw here, these are some of the classic characters of the JSA: Freedom Beast, Wildcat, Dr. Fate, Atomic Knight, Vibe, Seppa, the Black Pirate, and of course, Jay Garrick, the original Flash. What a great thing for Gunn to do, to throw that in. And I just also want to throw out real quick, too, Superman is arrested in this movie, but he's arrested on a particular street. That would be Wade Street, as a tribute to Mark Waid, whose comic book Superman Birthright was a major influence on this film. There were several other streets in this movie that were named after famous Superman writers and artists, and they had a lot of fun with that. So I give credit to James Gunn for pulling out everything he could to make ties with this. But you know what, guys? I'm seeing that Tesseract in your background, Kevin. It's glowing a little bit more. Can I burn off just a little bit more energy? We got
go for it.
That?
Please.
All right, let's burn off some Tesseract film. Okay, guys, we are going to hop into phase 3, and this is the point where I really want to dive into our Superman, Lois, and Lex. And if you're watching on YouTube, I've got it up on the screen, all the actors who have played an iteration of Superman over time, from George Reeves to Christopher Reeve to Tom Welling, Brandon Routh, Henry Cavill, Tyler Hoechlin, the most recent television Superman, of course, David Corenswet, who is our current Superman. We talked a little bit about Cornswet and his portrayal of Superman earlier, but this is the question I have for you guys. Where do you think David Cornswet's performance, some of you mentioned number 2, how does it fit within the rest of these Superman performances? Kevin, I actually want to start with you on this, because I think that your perspective is going to be very interesting as not a huge reader of the comics and just experiencing your Superman basically through film and TV.
My first Superman was George Reeves. I watched that black and white series. I think think part of it might have been in color, but it was black and white for me because we were the last family to have a color TV on our street in our neighborhood. So everything was black and white to like, the early 80s, basically early to mid 80s, I think it was. But I watched on repeat George Reeves all the time. And then, I did see the Christopher Reeves Superman movie, but I didn't see it as often as I wanted to. So I got kind of lost in the ether. Every now and then it would pop up on TV. And then I would watch it again eventually on VHS. So I have a special place in my heart for George Reeves. Rest in peace. But I think David has really cemented himself as, especially the way that he carries himself as Superman, as definitely one of the best. I'm not saying he's taken over Christopher Reeve, but he's definitely there in the top 3 for me next to George Reeves.
Scott, what about you? What are your thoughts as far as David in his place in history, and who is Reeves your number one Superman?
Christopher Reeve has been my number one Superman since the 1980s. I definitely thought of him when I thought of Superman. He's the reason I became such a huge Superman fan. I started reading Superman comics because of the movies with Reeve. But I got to be honest, Henry Cavill became my Superman. I enjoyed Man of Steel, but when I saw Batman versus Superman, I actually really liked that film. I know it's not super popular to say as a comic
I'm a fan of that
but
one
you
too,
liked
by
it.
the way.
But yeah, I really liked that movie. And I thought Henry did such a good job, especially with what he was given as an actor to work with. And it doesn't hurt that I'm a huge Warhammer nerd, and so is Henry Cavill. I mean, the guy's amazing. I love him in all of his roles. His work in Mission Impossible, and then of course as Geralt in the Witcher. That's been incredible. I can't wait to see Henry as the new Highlander. So for me, a long time now, like more than a decade almost, Henry Cavill has been Superman. And he portrayed Superman in many, many different films, like even the ones where Superman was a main character. He started doing the bit part deal that you do in modern day cinematic universes like Marvel, but in the DC flavor of it. But David Corenswet has just taken over this role. I mean, it's almost like watching, there's an Earth 1 Superman, an Earth 3 Superman, and Earth 4 Superman. And that's really the feeling you get. And I think that the powers that be at Warner Brothers, even though they're in the middle of that, or not the middle of, they've shifted over to James Gunn as being the guy. Even before that major shift to James, you had a moment in the Flash film, most recently with Ezra Miller, that showed various spheres that had iterations of the characters, including numerous iterations of Superman, not just limited to color versions. There was a black and white sphere in The Flash where we saw a different version of Superman, Batman, etc. Even seeing the Nicolas Cage Superman that never was. So yeah, I love that idea that there's lots of different versions of Superman. It's very a comic book accurate idea. It's like there's multiple Earths, and then sometimes there's a crisis on this one or that one, or maybe there's like some kind of crisis on infinite Earths. I don't know. I hear that might happen.
Yeah. Lacey, what about your thoughts on David as Superman? And we know your love for Christopher Reeve here on the Fandom Podcast Network. So I'm curious your thoughts where he falls right now after this first film.
Well, I would like to say that the chart is incorrect in a spot or two. So Brandon Routh's character started in 2006 and went to 2021, right? On because he did show up as older Superman in Legends of Tomorrow.
Different version of the universe of Superman. So
Not
the same one he played. Different version.
Right, different version, but he still did play Superman. But the thing is, they have Tom Welling as a single entity with not. So I mean, he played from 2001 to 2019 in 2 iterations because he did also the same thing. He came back and so he was Superman on Smallville from I think 2001 to 2017, and then 2019 he did a cameo in Batwoman to kind of connect the thing. So anyway, that being said, I think that my top 3 are Reeve and Corenswet and Tom Welling, which is why I was harping on the Tom Welling of it all right there. So I don't know that kind of in my head, I kind of keep my television Superman and my movie Superman separate. I don't know why. I think that the ones who have the television series going all the way back, they have a better opportunity to really create like long-term kind of information. But with this just being a single shot with David Corenswet, I think that he really did give us a full view of what we're going to expect for anything that keeps going. And I mean, I don't know how far James Gunn has it planned out, but I am ready for all of it.
Alex, your thoughts?
I think if we're going to add the television versions of Superman, we also need to add the animated versions of Superman. I already indicated where I stand with this. My Superman is Christopher Reeve. It's because it's what I grew up on. We had 10 years with Henry Cavill in that role, and to a point where he genuinely thought he was coming back for more. David Corenswet has given us a new interpretation of Superman that I like, that hits with me. And yes, like Scott said, there could be infinite Earths in which each one of these Supermen is their Superman. And that's absolutely a possibility. But for me, each Superman is bringing a different aspect. This is the Superman that I want to see.
I think that's a very fair point, Scott. Alex. For me, I just want to say this. I think when we look at these actors who've all played Superman, there's just a few that are generational. I think George Reeves represents a generation. Obviously, Christopher Reeve, for a lot of us, was Superman for a very long time. I think Tom Welling is a Superman for a generation. I think Henry Cavill has his following, and I think there's a lot of us who feel like we wish he would have gotten a better chance at Superman with some better scripts and not had the chaos around his version of Superman and his casting of Superman. I really love what David Corenswet did as Superman in this film. I think outside of Reeve, he is the one who's given the most humanity to Superman in his one film. Am I going to call him generational? I think he's on the path. I think he needs a couple more performances so we can really see that. But I think what he did in this movie was phenomenal as Superman, and I can't wait to see what he does next with it. But guys, we have what I call the triad of iconic characters. Obviously Superman, but we also you can't have Superman without Lois Lane. And I'm going to be honest with you before we even start. This might be my favorite iteration of Lois Lane ever. I thought Rachel Shannon did a phenomenal job with this character. She made, I think, a Lois that we really felt like didn't feel like she was somebody who needed saving. She actually saved Superman in this. And Lacey, I know you have been dying to talk about Lois Lane, so I'm going to let you kick things off here.
I love this Lois. She wears pants. She at no time gets rescued. She doesn't scream. She does. I mean, she is fully committed in her job and does not pull any punches. She is a chapstick and tennis shoes kind of gal, and I love that. Like she's very natural and very confident in her everything. And I love the fact that she calls Clark out on several things and says, you can't just keep doing this. There's some ethical stuff going on here. You can't just keep, interviewing yourself and calling it journalism. And I also love the way that they kind of riff off each other, because in that one scene where she's like, how do you think this is going, Superman? He says, I think I'm doing a great job. Where they've had some arguments, they've had some like real arguments, not just, oh no, help me, or there's a train, or there's a whatever. Which, don't get me wrong, those were fun movies and television series. The old school TV show where he'd rescue her every week is fine. That's of its time. But I love the fact that we have a Lois Lane who is rescuing her gentleman caller, her fella, whatever you want to call it. She is a boss at her job. She puts 47 pounds of sugar in her coffee, and then when Jimmy says something about it, she's like, "Oh, come on, buckle up, like I party like a rock star." And and she's not willing to take no for an answer. When she legit walks into the Justice League or gang and starts just like, guys, what's your problem? I mean, she's standing up to 3 legitimate superheroes that could just pick her up like this and take her outside. And she's not worried about it at all. I love her. She's awesome. And I think they have really good chemistry out of all the sets of Supermans, and Superman and Lois's, Lois no, I think that might be my favorite couple out of all, like Reeve included.
Yeah.
I think that they're, the way when he picks her up, when she first walks in and he picks her up and puts her on the counter and they're just talking and kind of like kissing and laughing, and it's just so laid back and natural. I really liked the way that they are as a couple. So, yeah.
Alex, what about you? Your thoughts on Lois?
So, one of the best things that was done in Man of Steel was they decided not to make Amy Adams an idiot. She knows who Superman is, and that's the same thing they've done here. This Lois Lane probably knew from the very beginning that Clark was Superman, and in fact, I have a feeling that most of the Daily Planet knows that Superman and Clark Kent are the same person.
At least Perry White.
Perry. No. That whole thing. Oh yeah, they've been dating each other for about 3 months, and we were told at the beginning that they've been dating for 3 months. So Jimmy Olsen knew that the two of them were dating, and it would be very obvious that between the two, yes, it's clear that Clark Kent is Superman. Hypno glasses or no. This is a fantastic Lois Lane. This is I keep using the word fantastic. It's almost as if it's been ingrained into my brain through commercials for the last 2 weeks. But I definitely feel like this is exactly the Lois Lane that needs to be in this movie. And I agree with Lacey. I think their chemistry is fantastic because it doesn't feel forced. With the Reeve Margot Kidder Lois, there's flirtation, and it's a little over the top. With this one, this is a couple. And they're competing in the same job. So when he offers her the opportunity for an exclusive interview with Superman, she goes into job mode, and there are no softball questions. And I love that. I think that's one of the best things about this movie.
Kevin, I'm curious with your thoughts on Lois, but there's one other thing I want to ask you, because I know you're our Hallmark guy around here too. And for years, the most famous kiss in comic book movies has probably been Peter Parker being kissed by Mary Jane in the original Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst Spider-Man. I think we now have maybe the new number one with the kiss where Superman flies her up and is kissing her there. That was just such a heartwarming moment. But I want your thoughts on Lois and that moment.
Rachel Brosnahan is officially my favorite Lois. She brought a certain charm and strength that we really needed to see in this character. And of course, yeah, we've already touched on the fact that she didn't need rescuing. She did the rescuing, but also the fact that she was able to put the pieces together about what Luthor was doing and helped with, exposing that and bringing that to the table with, of course, the help with her colleagues at the Daily Planet. Kevin Rubio, for those of you guys who don't know who he is a Facebook friend of mine, and he did the first real important Star Wars fan film called Troops, and he's awesome on the social media as well. He put up a meme that showed the two couples of Superman up. The first one showcasing Henry Cavill and was it Amy Adams, and then these two. And it's so funny because the way that he paired them together, and they're official pictures, he didn't manipulate them.
Yes.
But he said one of these couples look like they're going through a divorce. The other couples look like they're hitting it every day and twice on Sunday. And this was before I saw the film, before anyone saw the film. And it was true. It's totally true. The chemistry between Rachel's character and of course David's Superman were just absolutely wonderful. And I've been a big fan of Rachel Brosnahan ever since I saw Marvelous Miss Maisel. I love that series, and she's absolutely a wonderful actress. And not to mention, she's beautiful. But what I find beautiful about her is her strength. And I've been really enjoying the press with her and the rest of the crew as the excitement for this movie was coming and during the release of the film as well.
Scott, your thoughts on Lois?
So when I gave my review on Facebook, I said that Rachel Brosnahan was born to play this role, and she absolutely was. I said that she was a real spitfire when it comes to trying to rescue her man. In this case, Superman, he needs rescuing. And she's incandescent on the screen when she is portraying Lois Lane, not just for her beauty, of which there is a considerable amount, but for her resiliency and the actress's amazing timing when it comes to all of her scenes. That part where she and Mr. Terrific are watching the garage door open at the Hall of Justice while they're waiting to get to the tea craft is hysterical because of Rachel Brosnahan's timing and, of course, Eddie's ability as well. But you know, we talk a lot about how she didn't need rescuing and how she rescued Superman from the pocket dimension, the alternate universe there. And of course, that's all true. But guys, I think everybody's missing the point when they say that Superman didn't rescue Lois at any point in this movie. He didn't save her from a train or a crashing helicopter or the Niagara Falls. He saved her from her own jadedness as a reporter. Because when they're having that moment in the apartment and she says, you meet everyone and think everyone is beautiful and special. And Superman is like, because they are. And that by the end of the film, she realizes that even someone like Eve Tessmacher can be a genius, can be beautiful and special. And so that's how Superman rescued Lois in this movie. He rescued her from becoming a jaded journalist. Because let me tell you, that's what you do when you spend every day in a newsroom and you just keep seeing crime report after crime report. You have to check up on people at the jail, and you have to report on another car wreck, or you have to report on another DUI from a politician that was talking about how bad alcohol is for your county. And it can really drag you down if you don't have someone like Superman or Clark Kent around to help you understand that, yes, everybody is beautiful and special. You get up every day and you do the best job that you can, and that's your greatest strength.
One last thing I want to say about Lois 2, and the reason why I love this incarnation of Lois 2 is the fact that when she goes to talk to the Justice Gang, they treat her with the same level of respect, and she stands right up to them, just like Lois Lane in the comics. How the heroes have such a respect for Lois Lane in the comics, they portrayed that here, and I thought it was wonderful that they did that. They didn't talk down to her. I mean, Mr. Terrific lets her fly the T-Spear like, oh, it's nothing, and I thought that was great. But guys, for every love interest and every hero, we need a villain. And we have Lex Luthor back, played by the wonderful Nicholas Hoult. And I'm gonna say this: my favorite iteration of Lex Luthor might be Michael Rosenbaum. I loved him as Luthor on Smallville. This was a Luthor of a modern era, and I thought Hoult did a phenomenal job. Scott, I'm gonna come back to you. What did you think of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor?
Perfect screenshot here, guys, because this was the moment that I felt Holt really took over the role. Heretofore, he had definitely been, a supervillain, a guy who was convinced of his own superiority, the rich tech mogul, the perfect billionaire, 21st century evil dude that's so charismatic. There are plenty of people that are in his inner circle that are cheering him on as he basically makes himself a godlike figure amongst the media and the tech world. But in this moment that we see in this particular screenshot, where Superman has, one, let Krypto tear up his face and beat the crap out of him, and two, given him that speech I was just modifying, butchering, if you will, about how being human is the greatest strength. Lex is so mad that Superman is probably right that he's crying. Lex isn't crying in this scene because he's in pain from the dog, although that hurt. He wouldn't let that be the thing to make him cry. He's crying because he knows that Superman just stood there, and despite all of Lex Luthor's monologuing about how important it is to be human and that Clark is just an alien, that Superman's speech and his understanding of what it means to be human is so much better than anything Lex Luthor will ever be able to do, that he just can't stand it. And he starts crying as that moment. So Nicholas Holt's portrayal of Lex Luthor as a humanist who wants to be a futurist, but just can't actually quite get there because he can't get out of his own way and embrace self-sacrifice the way that this Kryptonian does, means that Holt is just absolutely perfect as Lex Luthor for our current times. He felt like he was ripped off of one of those Daily Planet newspaper pages here in the real world and just became the quintessential bad guy that we all have to deal with on a daily basis, especially right here in America these days.
Alex, what about you? What did you think of Nicholas Holt as Lex Luthor?
I'm actually going to defer and ask you to go to Lacey first, because Lacey and I have already talked about this, and she brought up an amazing point that I did not want to accidentally steal.
Okay, well then, Lacey, give me your thoughts.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, so I walked out of that movie and I said, Lex is a gamer. And what that tells me is that, and especially because at the end when he's in this shot that you have pictured, he's tearing up and he's seeing that he's, kind of being called out. I think that he was a nerdy kid. I think he was bullied. I think that he is now a gamer. Otis specifically says that he has over 2,500 moves that he can get, Ultraman to use. While they're fighting, and he has spent the last 3 years, watching all the, the footage or, game tape, if you will. I think that he has created for himself a confidence that is I don't want to say only seen, but it's one of those things that when you grow up being bullied and you finally find that confidence, like it's just huge, right? Like the amount of confidence that he shows just when he's walking into the fortress for the first time, he's walking straight in, and there are, saws flying through the air and things and whatnot, and and he's just walking straight. He doesn't blink an eye. He knows exactly what he wants. He knows exactly where it is. He's gonna get to it. Things fly right by his face and he doesn't blink an eye. Obviously that's because when they filmed it, there was nothing there. But in that scene, it's just like, he's just got like massive cojones. Like he walks straight through this huge fight that's happening and doesn't have a scratch. I think that when he chooses his girlfriends, he deliberately chooses people that he thinks are less intelligent so that he can control them in a way. And I think that's what happens when he decides he doesn't like them anymore. He just puts them in his little container storage and keeps them there. And I think that he has, I think that he's definitely got that gamer mentality of watching and knowing that if he just comes up with the right combination of moves, he can win the round. And I think that's really what I loved that. I loved that ability to use analysis, because he's a genius. He is a genius. Like there's no contest, there's no competition, there's no conversation that he's not smart. He's I don't know. I love this iteration. I do. Michael Rosenbaum is maybe my favorite because I had 10 years, or 8.5 years with him as Lex. So, but I am very excited to see how this is going to play out, because he's not going to stay in Belle Reve, which I also love that they brought in Belle Reve as the spot, because you can talk about Arkham all you want, but Belle Reve is the place where the crazy fun people go. So yeah.
Okay, Alex, you were the gentleman and let Lacey get in, but now I want your thoughts.
Part of the tour, the press tour that they did, I've been watching a lot of those, and I was fascinated to find out that Nick Holt actually auditioned for Superman. And he's so much better at being Luthor. This is just a terrific performance. One of the things I've never been a fan of with the Superman concept is Lex Luthor is his greatest foe. And I'm fine with that. But the problem is is that it's brawn versus brain. And brawn wins. And this changes that dynamic to what is human and what is not. And it's humanity versus non-humanity. And Luthor, who thinks that he's all about humanity, is far from it. And that's why he loses. That and the Kryptonian dog attacks him. But deep down, this is a story about what does it mean to be human? And Clark gets it. Lex doesn't. And I think that the moment that we've been talking about with him crying is the moment when he realizes, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. And I will hate Superman even more because he made me realize that I'm wrong. And Lex is going to double down. And it's going to make for great movies.
Yep, I think it's good points. Kevin, you want to hop in and give us your quick thoughts on Lex?
Nicholas Hoult was amazing as Lex, and I've been a fan with him for a long time. And I remember when I put a post out there, Alex, you actually says, yeah, you first discovered him in the movie Warm Bodies. And I said, I agreed with you, but I forgot about a boy. And I remember how much I liked that film, but I made the comparison that I feel like he has Gary Oldman vibes of these different types of characters that he can do. And one of my favorite movies he's done recently is Renfield. Absolutely wonderful in that. And of course, we all know him as one of the war boys in the Mad Max Fury Road. This guy's amazing. And he, when Alex was referring to that, he had, auditioned to be Superman was very Tom Hiddleston like when instead he got Loki when he also tried out for Captain America. And I think we found that the better role was definitely for him as Lex Luthor and Nicholas in this. And Alex, you summed up his demeanor and what he had to go through absolutely wonderfully. And I'm really excited to see more Lex Luthor with Nicholas Hoult.
Okay, guys. Next up, we've talked about the triad, but if we're going to talk about this movie, we got to take a few minutes and talk about the James Gunn of it all. James Gunn came into this situation with a ton of pressure. He walked into a mess. Let's be honest with you, everybody here. The Scott Snyder universe did not go as planned. Warner Brothers had been a mess. James Gunn left Marvel, came into this, making him kind of the new version of Kevin Feige in a way of the DC movie universe.
Oh, so he is. He definitely is. Yeah.
The big question is I mean, he chose to take the big gun right out of the bat. Some people say it's Batman. I think Superman is always your big gun when you're talking DC. Obviously, he's got a lot of projects going on. He's really helming this. You can see some of the Marvel influence in moments in this movie. Crypto kind of taking Lex on, kind of like what the Hulk did to Loki. I'm just saying that, but I think that maybe even his way of tributing Kevin Feige too in that film. But guys, I'm just going to ask each of you real quick. Did James Gunn stick the landing on Superman? And are we feeling optimistic about what is coming for DC? Scott, I'm going to start with you on this.
First of all, it's Zack Snyder, not Scott Snyder. Please don't.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Actually, I like
Scott Snyder.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I like Zack's movie. I enjoyed the Snyderverse. I like Rebel Moon. There, I said it. So it's a thing where Snyder was doing his own take on Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, the whole spiel, right? Because like you were just saying, James Gunn is the new Kevin Feige. I really feel like James Gunn's the new Zack Snyder. Not so much that he's going to emulate Snyder. His movies, his tone, all of the films that Gunn has made are almost diametrically opposed to what Snyder would be doing in that same genre. But it's that he is in charge of the tone of the DCU, even more so than Gunn is in charge of the overall story arc of the DCU. Kevin Feige is very much got his finger on the pulse, if you will, when he's trying to be about the tone of the MCU, but he's also more about the narrative arc of the MCU, which is something that Marvel famously lampoons in She-Hulk when she goes and talks to Kevin. But I digress. James Gunn did a great job with this version of Superman, and he did what he really, really, really needed to do with this project, and that is kick off the new era of DC Universe with a different take. Like, it isn't necessarily going to be fireworks around every corner and him making a ton of money, although they're, again, like Alex told us earlier, they're making really good money. He wasn't going to have this atomic bomb of like a cultural epoch with his version of Superman. The point was, he was telling audiences, this is my viewpoint, this is where I stand on Superman as a character. He's about hope, forgiveness, humanity. He's a superhero man for all seasons. And I hope that you will come along with us on this journey, because we're a band of misfits. We're the island of misfit toys, if you will. And we want to show you a good time, but we also are not going to necessarily kowtow to audience expectations. And he kind of did that with Guardians of the Galaxy as well. And it was a huge success. Got 3 movies out of a comic book property that I thought was never going to work as a movie. I was like, nobody's going to understand the Guardians of the Galaxy on the big screen. And they were great. And he did the same thing here. I knew that it was going to be great. I didn't know it was going to be quite this great. And Gunn really nails it, even to the point of enough nostalgia without hitting you over the head with it. When we got to the part where we saw the Hall of Justice, I could hear the late, great Ted Knight in my ear going, later at the Hall of Justice. And it was like watching something out of my childhood, It was perfect, and I think he stuck the landing, although the landing may have been more like what Krypto does to Supergirl, where she crashes into the earth, or the landing that Superman had at the beginning of the film, where he crashes into the snow. But that's okay. After that moment, he gets up and he saves the day, and that's what Gunn has done here, in my opinion.
Lacey, your thoughts on, did James Gunn stick the landing?
I think absolutely. He did a few things that I really enjoyed. He did all the things that I really enjoyed, but the hair, man, the fact that his hair, when he flies, actually moves. I've seen it 5 times, and every time I see him fly in that first scene, I'm like, they got the hair right. The hair's flying in the wind. That, just his attention to detail. The fact that he has, he's really specific with his scripts. The line where Superman's in Lex's office, like screaming about the dog, and he says, "I don't know what dog you're talking about," and he's like, "Stupid dog in a cape," or "Ugly dog in a cape," and then I don't know what you're talking. Just there's little lines. He's so like good with characterization and making sure that everyone has a very memorable character. Not one. If you can pick any character in this movie, and I could go on for 10 minutes. He does so well with his character, not just with the casting choices, but with just his writing is amazing. I love it. It's amazing. I want to know what they're going to do with those monkeys now. That's the whole thing. I love the fact that he brought Will Reeve. We haven't talked about Will Reeve's cameo. That was amazing. And I've watched a couple of interviews with Will Reeve, and he was so excited about. It's just like heartwarming, I love the fact that he had some crazy fun. We haven't talked about the Peacemaker cameo. I think that's a fun little way to kind of pull in all the other pieces when you're not really thinking about it. And I think that I have loved James Gunn forever, since he did like PG porn and Super and there was one with
Slither.
No, before that it was the Super 8 Super.
No, that was he also did Brightburn. So
right, Brightburn was awesome, but there was one where it was kind of like it's fine. I've watched him forever. I have yet to find a movie that he's done that I did not absolutely love. So yay.
Alex, your thoughts?
So there's a scene in the movie in which Mr. Terrific wipes out a whole bunch of guards and everything using his T-spheres. And I watched that with Lacey and went, oh, it's Michael Rooker's Arrow from Guardians of the Galaxy. And it took me out of the movie for a second. And then I went, this is still fun. I'm okay with it. Do I think he stick the landing? Because that's the question. Did James Gunn stick the landing? I think he landed a superhero pose. I think he did a great job with it. He gave us characters that were really interesting, that were fun to watch, was entertaining. And the movie's only 2 hours long, like 2 hours, 7 minutes, something like that. I could have gone an extra 30 minutes just because I was enjoying myself. We didn't get the ridiculousness of every building's got to be destroyed. There's a blue beam coming from space. We didn't get any of that. We got a wholesome superhero movie, and it was a great way to do it. And James Gunn, considering the fact that he had that put upon him, whereas Feige and the team at Marvel were starting with secondary characters, whereas DC is not going, let's test the waters with Plastic Man. I'll watch a James Gunn Plastic Man movie.
Oh, I'm all in for that.
I am absolutely all in for that. Give me a Ralph Dibny
Elongated Man
Gunn movie where it's a detective movie. Heck yeah, I'm in. I think James Gunn did exactly what needed to be done with this universe and put together something that is absolute quality and will only get better with repeated viewings. Right, Lacey?
I don't know what you're talking about. 5 times. Also, the movie I was trying to think of a minute ago was called The Specials. He wrote it. It's like pre any of his directorial stuff, and it's fantastic. You got to watch it.
I remember that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, Kevin, your thoughts? What has James Gunn
He
stuck it?
absolutely stuck the landing, superhero style, just like Alex said. And to borrow a phrase that we've used before, Kyle, is I have purchased season tickets for whatever Gunn will help escort us into the new Gunn/DCU universe. And what a great way to start things off. And I'm really, really excited to where the fact that we had a discussion, Kyle, how can we cover DC going forward? And let's welcome it into our True Believers MCU podcast / Facebook group. Let's also talk about other superheroes that aren't MCU related. That's the impact that this movie had on us, and as podcasters and as fans of fandom in general. I'm really excited. I can't wait.
Yeah, I am very excited for everything James Gunn has got planned. I'm very curious to see what's going on. But guys, I'm gonna get ready to kind of close things out. We ran a little long, but I'm gonna burn off a little that last of that Tesseract energy for this episode. So hold on. Okay, guys, as we get ready to kind of close things out here, as we see Lacey holding up her popcorn bucket over there. In fact, Lacey, would you Superman heating up some popcorn for you there? You're on mute, by the way. It's a Lacey thing. We have it at least once at every podcast.
It's okay. I was just showing it. I didn't need to actually say anything. I was just saying yes. It's my popcorn bucket. It's very exciting. Okay.
Well, guys, I want to get everybody's final thoughts and final words on Superman, a movie that I think we all agree we absolutely loved and are very excited for what the future of the DC is. Scott, I want to let you kick things off here as the big Superman fan that you are, and give us your final thoughts on Superman.
I mean, part of the reason that I became a journalist is because of Superman. Let's be honest, but between him and Peter Parker working for newspapers when I was a kid, I was like, hey, maybe I should give that a try. And then, of course, Kermit the Frog, Sesame Street News. But the major thing that I took away from this Superman is that Superman is back as a force for hope, good, truth, justice, and a brighter tomorrow. It's what DC has been going with for a number of years now in the comics. And I think this movie embodies that philosophy big time. And not just for humanity and the, in-universe city of Metropolis and whatnot that Superman protects, but for the movies and the Warner Brothers plans for DC going forward. It's about truth, justice, and a brighter tomorrow. And I loved that they brought back just enough, like I said, just enough of that nostalgia, including an excellent riff on John Williams' immortal Superman theme for the soundtrack, to really instill in the old generation like myself, gosh, this is the Superman that I've missed, the Superman that I fell in love with. And then also opening it up to the new generation. Like I said, I brought my nieces, Elizabeth and Madison, with me, who had never seen a Superman movie, and they loved this. They're ready to go to see whatever the next thing that DC does in the movie theaters, and I'm super excited to take them. And I'm going to hold on to that big red cape and enjoy the ride. And then occasionally, when the girls want to take over with Superman flying them around, I'll do like Mr. Terrific and grab onto Crypto and hold on for dear life.
Alex, it's been great to have you back on the Fandom Podcast Network. I want your final thoughts on Superman. And you're on mute.
This is me saying I know I'm on mute. Nature versus nurture. Nature versus nurture. Let's give a shout out to Ma and Pa Kent. His characters were terrific, acted brilliantly. Neva Howell and Pruitt Taylor Vince are believable, absolutely believable, which is important. You have to have believable characters. I believe that these two people raised that Superman.
Yeah, totally. I don't mean to interrupt, Alex, but I can't believe I haven't mentioned this yet. The sister of Neva Howell lives here in Rutherford County. She was at our movie theater watching her sister on screen and talked to us about it after the film was over. So that was amazing to look up and see somebody who was related to one of the actresses in the film, in this case, Neva Howell, who played Ma Kent. Carry on.
No, that's really super cool. You have to have a believable universe to make a believable movie. I've always been a big proponent that one of the best film universes that we've had is the Fast and the Furious franchise, because as dumb as it is, Justin Lin was able to put together from Too Fast, Too Furious, well, specifically Tokyo Drift, through to the seventh film in the series, a universe where everybody was believable, no matter how ridiculous things were going on. And you laugh at that, and then remember that in this movie, Superman saved a squirrel. It's okay for your movie to be silly, as long as everything else is believable. And Ma and Pa Kent, absolutely believable. They were two of my favorite characters from the movie. I loved them to death. I have said over and over again, all throughout social media, that they are two of the most important characters in the film, because they're the ones that raised Superman right.
Lacey, your thoughts, final thoughts on Superman.
Sorry, had to unmute. Okay. So many thoughts. I think that he's one of those characters that's never, there's always going to be an audience for, originally it was Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Now it's Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow. There's always something to be, it's a hopeful character. There's never going to be an end to the amount of stories you can tell with this character. And I will be here for every one of them. I've got a piece of Christopher Reeve's cape. I think I've told you that once before, or many times probably. I love my little square. It's this big, and it's numbered, and it's framed. I will always watch Superman, and this one is one that I'm very excited about. So, I think he's got it. He's got it. He found it. I'm very excited to see what's next.
Kevin, you want to pop back in and give me your final thoughts on Superman? You're muted.
Wow. Everyone has articulated it very, very well. I just want to say I agree with everyone that's saying. And by the way, Alex, great point on the Fast and Furious franchises. No matter how silly it gets, and you can say the same thing about what happens with Superman and DCU going forward, is you got to make the characters themselves care about and believable, whether they go to space or not. And I am a diehard fan of that series and will continue to watch them. Whether they end, keep going, whatever, I'll keep at it. But and I'm going to do the same with Spider-Man and Spider-Man. Keep saying Spider-Man, Superman going forward. And I think that, I think it was Alex you saying earlier that this is someone's first Superman, and that excites me to no end. We're of an age where Christopher Reeve has resonated with us for so long, and I love the fact that Corn Sweat is going to do the same for a new generation. That makes me excited.
For me,
Kyle, if I may,
Yeah,
Kyle,
go
can
ahead.
I get one more second here? I did write my editorial for our next issue about Superman, and I'd like to read the last couple sentences, if I may.
Yeah,
before you
please
keep
go
going.
ahead, Scott.
So basically, I wrote, As an alien, an outsider, most of all, Superman wants to be one of us. Lots of comic book characters have messages they want to teach us. Batman shows us what it means to be resilient. Iron Man shows us what it means to be intelligent. Spider-Man shows us what it means to be a good neighbor. But Superman shows us what happens when we aspire to be more than we are. Look up. And I think that's just the perfect encapsulation of the film and the effect it's having on people.
I think for me, as a longtime comic book reader and just supporting anything that comes out comic wise on media, as I try to do, because I want it to succeed. This movie, the biggest thing I walked out of it was hope, because we have been in a little bit of a comic book film downscale. I think people are burned out by franchises. I think people are burned out by things. I think Marvel's been a little rudderless for a while, and hopefully that's going to correct itself. I think so many people of us got disappointed by what DC has been the last 10 to 15 years because it was so dark. And yes, Batman's dark, things like that. But when we see Superman is the biggest icon in comic books. I'm sorry. He as far as superhero comics go, he is. Batman's probably the second closest, maybe followed by Spider-Man. But Superman is so much more. Superman is something to everybody. Some people he's the Boy Scout. Some people he's the ultimate example. Some people he's just something special. And that's what this movie played up on. James Gunn did a brilliant job of finding nostalgia Superman, finding and humanizing Superman, which I think is one of the hardest things to do. And David Corenswet was beautiful as Clark Kent and Superman, maintaining the humanity of the character. And that was the biggest thing, is keeping the humanity of Superman. I am so excited to see more of David Corenswet as Superman, to see what he's going to take Superman, where James Gunn is going to take the DC universe. And I think he's going to have a lot of fun with it. And I think that's been something that's been missing from our comic book projects for a while now, is the fun factor. And this movie really gave me the fun factor. And I'm hoping the next comic book movie that's going to be out very shortly, Fantastic Four, brings some fun factor in as well. This has been an absolutely wonderful podcast, guys. I want to thank you all so much for contributing to it. Real quick, though, before I close things out, too, I just want to give a quick little future of what we can expect from DC. Right around the corner, Peacemaker Season 2. James Gunn has already confirmed events of Superman will be part of Peacemaker Season 2. We know in 2026 we will have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And, of course, we had the wonderful Supergirl cameo at the end of this film. Some other things that are being worked on. We have Clayface, which is going to be something completely different in the DCU, but James Gunn diving into his little oddball sides. Matt Reeves just finished the script for the Batman Part 2. They're playing that as an Elseworlds thing, which I think is a brilliant move, which allows James Gunn to still bring in his own Batman, but have this great world that Matt Reeves created with the Batman. There's talk of The Authority, and it's a live-action film, a Swamp Thing project. We do know we're getting Lanterns next year, which we will be seeing Guy Gardner again in that, as well as Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan. I'm very excited for that project. I'm a huge Green Lantern fan. I can't wait for that. There's still talk of an Amanda Waller series. I would love that, because I love that character as she's been portrayed. So there's a lot of things going on with DC. I would also be remiss, Nathan Miracle of our What a Piece of Junk podcast would kill me if I didn't mention the fact that they are doing a animated Mr. Miracle movie, which I am very excited for. One of the most underrated characters in the DC universe, but a ton of fun with that character. But guys, again, I want to thank all of you for contributing to this episode. But I do want to mention, too, what is coming up next here on True Believers. It opens this Thursday, and Fantastic Four, The First Steps. The early reviews have been pretty positive. I'm very curious about this film. I think we are seeing Superman and Fantastic Four, two of the hardest comic book properties to bring to the big screen. And it's going to be very curious to see how this goes on. But we will be covering it here on True Believers, and we're very excited for that. Of course, this is the Fandom Podcast Network. If you've been watching on our YouTube channel live, thank you so much. I know Nathan Miracle was joining us on the chat earlier. Thank you so much for that. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on a lot of different places, but scan that QR code on your screen if you're watching it on YouTube. It'll take you to our main homepage where all of our audio podcasts are, and you can fill your ears with all the great shows of the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, we are all over social media. You can find us most recently on Blue Sky at FanPod Network. But I want to give all my great Justice Gang members here a chance to let people know where they can be found. Scott, let's start with you. Where can people find you on social media?
Well, you can check out my meanderings and mumbles on social media. On Facebook, I'm just my real self, Scott Baltman. On Instagram, I am Derek_Gray. And of course, you can hear me talk about Star Wars and everything happening in a galaxy far, far away here on the Fandom Podcast Network as part of What a Piece of Junk, the Star Wars podcast.
Super Pants, Lacey. When you are not hiding out in your fortress of DVDs and Blu-rays, where can people find you on your limited social media space?
Yeah, I'm on Letterboxd. Realistically, not often. I'm on Discord, and I am in the real world at Dragon Con coming up on Labor Day weekend. I will be in the military sci-fi room because that's where I volunteer. So come say hi.
Alex, where can people find you on social media? And of course, it was so great to have you back on the network, sir.
Absolute pleasure getting the opportunity to be back. As far as where to find me on social media, you can't. I'm pretty bad. I dropped off of Twitter a long time ago to the point where I still call it Twitter. But you can find my improv troupe, Safety Third, Dangerously Funny Improv, on YouTube as well as on TikTok at Safety Third Improv.
And what you're doing there has been so great, Alex, and we're so proud of you for what you're doing with that. So check out Safety Third.
We're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, they do a lot of great stuff. Mr. Wright, so first of all, thank you for being my man in the chair for this podcast. And
You got it, brother.
Me out with it. Where can people find you on the socials?
You can find me on Spartan_Phoenix on all of the socials, including Blue Sky at Spartan Phoenix. And of course, please check out the Fandom Podcast Network on X, Instagram, also on Blue Sky, and also check out our Facebook group. And also, please join our True Believers Facebook group now that we're including not only MCU, but also DCU and superheroes in general.
And of course, too, if you want to give us a little love and give us a little fuel for the Tesseract, visit our TeePublic store. We have a great relationship with them. You can find all the gear of the Fandom Podcast Network, from shirts to hats to mugs. Kevin, I believe you are wearing your True Believers shirt there.
Yes, rocking True Believers. Yes.
There we go. Well, guys, again, this has been the True Believers podcast and YouTube show. You might see Marvel and MCU podcast. That's how we started, but after Superman, we are changed. We are the Marvel, MCU, DC, and comic book related podcast as far as everything that is going on in entertainment with our superheroes. And we were very excited with that. Kevin, just don't play with the Tesseract anymore. It's causing dimensional.
No, I like playing with it.
Yeah, we're going to see what happens around here, guys. Until next time, this has been Superman, our thoughts, our everything. We want to thank you for joining us, whether it's on the YouTube channel, whether it's on audio podcast version. Normally, we like to say Excelsior around here, and to honor the great Stanley, it is always Excelsior. But until next time, it's time to go up, up, and away, Superman style. Thank you so much for joining us here on True Believers. And you know what? Just enjoy your fandom.